Hello, everyone. Welcome to Mini Break. I'm Gary Preston with my co-host, Cindy Beale. Our guest today is from Melbourne, Australia. He's a tennis coach while also coaching for the Australian Football League. He has worked with some very noted tennis players on the WTA and ATP Tour. Ladies and gentlemen, Marc Sophoulis.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Mini Break. And welcome, Marc, all the way from the other side of the world where it's tomorrow for us.
Thank you. It is, we're into Saturday morning, and I believe you're on Friday night.
I know, and you have the privilege of actually having our brand new opener for you because we've changed it up a little bit. So
that was pretty cool. I really like that. It's maybe I need to take that from you and use that for my website.
I'll send it to you. After we'll talk together.
We'll do deals.
So now, my biggest question right now, because I know it just started, the weather over here just started getting better and more consistent, because I think today it was in the high 80s. So what is it like over there right now? Because
yeah, we just hit winter, and it is freezing cold every morning. I walk on the tennis court, so we deal in Celsius here. So we're between sort of 1 degree and 3 degrees Celsius here, which is very cold. This morning there was some ice on the ball.
For our New Yorkers, you can Google it. So
yeah, I always forget that being over there, that everything is completely opposite of what we are. Or you're ahead, or we're backwards, or something. Right now, I can say we're backwards, but that's just me saying that. So.
We're very different. We're different, worlds apart.
Oh, completely. So, but we are so happy that you've decided to come on the show with us today, because Gary told me about you a while back, and I was just like, well, that'd be great if we can get him on, but he's probably too busy, living the high life and being all fancy and everything. So we probably won't get him.
No, not at all. I am quite busy with the roles that I play in coaching and life. Being a parent as well as a coach has its own challenges, but at the same time, I love to give my time up. And at the end of the day, it's all about us growing and learning. And if you're not sharing, you're not learning. So it's one of my.
And you have what, two girls, right?
I got 2 girls, a 5 and a 3-year-old who are probably downstairs watching this on YouTube, because I flicked it on before I came up into this room, and hopefully they're watching the show.
Okay, well, that's great. If they are, hello, I'm Sydney.
Hello.
That's Gary, or that's Gary, whichever way he is. I'm backwards right now. See, we're still backwards.
The right way, you're good.
So what we like to do, Marc, before we start off all of our shows, we start off with trying to get our audience to know a little bit about you and who you are. So we do this game called 2 Truths and a Lie, so that way we can see how much people know about you or what they think they know about you. So For everybody that's watching right now, make sure you give us your answers, but give us your answers closer toward the end of the show. So that way it gives you time to think, because he may say something in between that gives you more of an idea of who he is. So the first one that comes up for us is that you've coached 2 sports of professional athletes at the highest level at the same time. Or number 2, that you took a set off the great Roger Federer in practice during your heyday or your playing days. Okay, and then the third one is you were a coach of a singer and world champion dancer in their field, not on the tennis court. And I'm kind of wondering who that could be. So right now I'm kind of stuck because I want to know who that is. So.
My money's entirely Minogue.
So we will definitely come back around to all of that a little bit later and give you the answer. But as of right now, we do have some questions for you, Marc. And we also have a couple of guests that come on. One of our mainstays right now is Chip Hines. He's one of our favorite people here in the United States. He's always at all of our tennis tournaments that we go to, and he helps to run them and, make sure things run smoothly. So he says hello or good day, as he said. So welcome, Chip.
I do that a lot. Every time I say I'm Australian, everybody says "G'day, mate," and I'm like, okay, we don't really talk like that, but it's so good. It's all good.
You can say hi. Okay, so we want to just go ahead and just dive right in and see what's going on over in Australia and see, what are some of the differences that we have, that you have, and just make everybody happy and come together. So Gary, let me hit us off.
Well, at one point, I would like to talk about the spread thing that you guys use, that paste that they try to get Americans use. I tried it once, never again. But no, on to more important matters. A lot's been going on in Australia this past year. Beginning of the year, you had the fire, then COVID-19, hit the world in general. What's going on there from that standpoint in regards to the virus as of right now?
Yeah, it's been a challenging 2020, to say the least. I think, we're all in a situation right across the world where COVID has hit us all, but we did in Melbourne especially have the bushfires that did almost stop the Australian Open occurring, and there was obviously plenty of news and right across the world. So that was a challenge to get over first, and now with COVID-19 and we basically in Melbourne have been for 2 months. We were, not able to really leave the house. It was basically stay home and in lockdown. And I know there's a lot of places around the world that were probably a bit longer, but we've started to gradually go back, and coaching has taken on a form of more one-on-one kind of thing at the moment. So we're on court a little bit, gradually moving into smaller groups, and then I think June 22nd is when the restrictions will hopefully ease a little bit more, and we can have people in gyms, indoor gyms, I think up to about 20 or 30 people at a time. So we've gradually sort of got back to some sort of normality. Our shopping centres are back reopen again, some cafes and restaurants. So it has started to ease, but look, it's been a challenging time. And, I think although it's been challenging for myself, it's actually been quite rewarding because I get to spend more time with the family, which is something that I haven't been able to do a lot of over the last few years just due to some commitments with work. So it's been nice. And, my daughter's probably watching this, and she said to me within the first few weeks of lockdown, she said, "Daddy, I really like coronavirus." And I said, "Why is that so hard?" And she said, "Because you get to be home." And I was like, okay. So it sort of gives you a bit of an understanding of where their mind's at. And, I think it's been a good thing for some people to spend time with family and appreciate the small things. But, obviously it's been a challenge for a lot of other reasons as well.
Well, you are an incredibly busy person. I mean, I started trying to do some research on you just so I can kind of make sure I had at least one or two things I could say and make you think, oh, he really did his thing. Dude, there was so much. I'm not even going into it right now because there was a lot. I stopped at one other. You were mentoring, doing this and that, and then your football and this, that. But I did have a question now. Is it because it says Australian American football? So is that like our football or is it soccer?
So basically, Australian football is a game that's basically only played here. There is some leagues overseas that have tried to bring in some Australian football over there, but basically it's a different sport. It's almost a cross between the Irish Gaelic football, a little bit of a football. There's kind of different rules, so it's quite interesting to watch. If you get an opportunity, type in AFL and have a look. It's pretty crazy the things that they do in this sport.
It's much more interesting than netball, just saying.
There's a lot that goes on. It's quite a physical sport. So if you type in some highlights of Australian football, it's pretty incredible skills, and the guys have got to be great athletes and great at their skills as well.
Now, as far as the fire goes, how has recovery been with that?
It's been gradual. I mean, obviously, thank God it was not situated where I am, but obviously in bushland it was quite challenging for a lot of people, and the Australian Open was affected quite heavily with the smoke, and it was really hard to practice. We had to cancel a lot of practice sessions here, and It was very, very thick smoke. You could barely see anything. And I was flying a little bit between a few states in Australia at the time, and you could just sort of just see, smoke right across all the land. It was quite scary. People losing their houses and, all their belongings. And obviously it's a real challenging time for those people who have gone through that, plus going through COVID-19 it's just been a horrible 2020 for a lot of Australians. And, we're quite positive people, as maybe you can get the gist of over there, but we're quite happy-go-lucky kind of nation, but it has challenged a lot of us right up until now.
So real quick, are the fires that you have there, is this something that happens like yearly, or was this like a one-off thing that happened?
Yeah. One-off. It was a one-off thing that occurred in January, and it started in December. It was crazy. It went for over a month we just couldn't stop them. They were spreading right across New South Wales, Victoria, into Queensland, and it was just amazing how much it spread right the way through. And a lot of people were affected by it, and even I'm basically quite close to the city, and we're not near bushland, but you were just breathing in this smoke that was just coming across. It was so thick, and there was one day you couldn't even see almost end to end on the tennis court. It was
wow.
Crazy. Yeah, so we had a battle on our hands.
Yeah, because I know that here, especially in California, we tend to have a lot of fires, mudslides there as well, but that's a yearly thing. So they pretty much know when it's going to happen and try to get ahead of it if they can, but you still see it happening. And I know a lot of friends that I have in California that are firefighters volunteered their time to actually come over to Australia to help and see what they could do to help. And a lot of them said the same thing. It was just like out of hand. It was more out of control than they've seen here in the States. So
it was crazy. And I think the good that comes out of these situations, and we talk COVID and we talk bushfires or whatever, but it's the amalgamation of everybody. And I think, the more that we can understand that, it doesn't have to be through a natural disaster or a pandemic that we come together. Right. I think, we as a community, as human beings, need to come together more often and share and help each other out, because at the end of the day, life's hard enough being separate. When you're own, it's quite challenging, but everybody needs someone, and a coach plays that role in every way, shape, and form. Is that we're there to help people first and foremost. And one of my philosophies in coaching is that I want to teach life lessons through tennis lessons, and the more that we can come together and teach each other life lessons and help each other through it, the better life becomes, and we become a lot closer, and we can share so much more, and the connection is an amazing feeling when you're connected to people.
Correct. And I say the same thing, as far as I hate that it has to be something like a pandemic or fire, any type of disaster, to get people to realize that, it's Monday. You can still come together and be friends and be nice with each other. It doesn't have to be a disaster outside for that to happen, because I think it takes too much time out of your life to be mean and spiteful to people, when you can just be happy and just do what you got to do to move along in everyday life. You don't have to love everybody, but it will be a good thing if you can like a lot of people. So
yeah, absolutely. And there's a lot of things that I talk about with players. There's so many things in life we can't control, but I think the most important thing is to control what we can control in life, and that is to be the best people that we can be. And if we can give our all to our life and also help others out, I think we're in control of that. So I think if we can control those things and not worry about the things we can't control, then you seem like you have more time than what you probably think you do.
Exactly. And like Chip Hines just said, he knows that a lot of Australian players, donated so much money to the fire relief, and I'm sure that the country was absolutely grateful for that as well.
Yeah, we were grateful for a lot of the Australian Open players. Everyone that came down and played the Australian Open donated something, and it was all the top players. We did bushfire relief charity day at the Australian Open, and we raised so much money through that, and it's. That's what the community's like. And that's why I love what you guys are doing, and more than happy to jump on, because it's about bringing the tennis community together. We're a close-knit community, but we don't show it, and we don't come together often enough.
Exactly. And that was the thing. We saw that, during when coronavirus first started. I mean, a lot of us, we have a GLTA league here, a Gay Lesbian Tennis Alliance. And with that, we're going to all of these different tournaments all over the world. But we see each other, but we don't really get a chance to interact and talk to each other that much. So we started realizing that as much as we know these people, we know their names. We don't get to, find out anything about them. And that's why we wanted to do this, especially now, because a lot of players kept seeing like Roger Federer and Serena Williams and everybody, hitting balls on the side of their walls at their homes. And I was like, I live in a New York apartment and I have neighbors.
Yeah.
Can't do that. So we definitely wanted to make sure that, we did something that not only brought people together, but especially now in the climate that we're in, to be able to talk and be able to get things off their chest in a constructive and positive way, and know that there are people out there that feel the same way that you do and need to hear that from time to time. So yeah, we're grateful that you came on.
Absolute pleasure. And it's something that, it's funny that when people say to me, "Are you so busy? You wouldn't have time to come on." Look, at the end of the day, it's about sharing. I love sharing and being part of it. And if you don't ask someone, you never know. So, I encourage you guys to keep asking people, because I love sharing, information and being part of, a sharing community, because tennis is notoriously not. It's a notoriously selfish sport. And I feel like we need to come together more often and share our ideas and connect with people. And, I love connecting with so many people. And if anyone gets hold of this and watches this and wants to connect on social media or whatever, I'm more than happy to share. And because it's an important part of life is sharing and learning from one another.
Please do. And anybody that you want to throw our way, do so, because we're, starting to branch it out too a little bit more, because we started it off with just tennis, but the name actually kind of, says that we can do it with other sports as well, because everybody else is out there. And like, I'm used to just talking to tennis players. I like sports, but I'm not like a huge sports person. Like football, I'm from Texas, and here Texas is like, football is religion. And so I live in New York now because I don't practice that religion. But, we have a lot of people here that do play a lot of different sports. And so we're starting to realize that we don't want to leave them left out of the conversations, because sports in general, whether it's tennis, football, volleyball, I think it's something that everybody can, they're going through a lot of the same issues and just not, sure how to speak about them.
Yeah.
So,
and what sport is, it's interesting, because sport is it's not who we are, it's what we do. And I think, who we are is the people behind that mask, and these tennis players, and I was hearing a lot about tennis players losing identity through this virus, and they've lost their identity. I thought, well, no, that they haven't. They're people. At the end of the day, you're a person. You're a person much longer than you are an athlete. So your identity is not a tennis player. You're a person, and secondly, you do tennis for a living. And I think we as society need to understand the people behind everything. And as coaches, we need to build the relationships. We need to have the trust and the buy-in from our clientele, from the people that we coach. And that's about understanding people, not about understanding tennis. So every sport is unified in that they're people playing the sport. They're not footballers, or they're not soccer players, or they're not tennis players. They're people that play a sport. Right. And that's how we connect the dots with that.
Exactly.
I think I need to take a sabbatical to Australia, because I've been preaching this stuff for quite some time, which kind of segues into the next question. Sports culture in Australia. We briefly touched on it the other day. Could you embellish or elaborate a little bit more to give people an idea of what it is in Australia? What is sport?
Sport is just a way of being. And I think, every child now, that is born into a family is doing some kind of sport. My girls are doing swimming, or they're doing gymnastics, or they're doing, whatever. You've got kids playing tennis, and we've got so many options in Australia, especially. I know there's other countries that possibly don't have as many options as we may have here. But at the end of the day, sport it's amazing to bring people together, to create these great relationships. I think, all of my friends that I've ever known, for whatever reason, I've connected more with the ones that have played sport, because that's the way we are. And 90% of them would do that, or enjoy a sport. So you have something in common. So, it is a way of being here in Australia. We have an amazing setup in Melbourne, especially where I think we're the sports hub of the world. Sorry, guys, if you think you're
No, we can say we're number 2.
yeah.
Well, we're our own breed. Let's just say that. Like that's the best way to put it. I mean, from a tennis perspective, all I can say is thank God for Venus and Serena still being around, and because there hasn't been a male win since 2003. No offense to any of like Jack Sock or Isner or any of them, but I mean, they're the underlying tone of it, absolutely, it's completely different.
Yeah, and it's interesting. Like we love our sport in Australia. Australian football is one of the most loved sports, and I'm honoured and privileged to be able to coach in that sport also. And it's one of those things that I just love being around athletes and people that are striving for success. And that's what sport is. It's about people that are really driven. They want to stay fit and healthy. It's a lifestyle choice. And for me, it's been since I was a kid. My dad played tennis, and I got into tennis, and he migrated from. He was born in Egypt. He migrated to Australia, and it was an amazing journey for him. But he made friends through playing sport, and that's how he evolved in his life. And then he got that onto me, and I ended up playing sport, and my kids do sport, and it's a way of being. And I think it connects the community, and you've got something to talk about the weekend's game, or who played at the Australian Open, and you go and connect, and you go to different things and different sporting events to share together. So it's an amazing thing, sport, and I don't know where I'd be without it, to be honest.
So how did Australians take the fact that there was not going to be an Australian Open this year?
It's been still a talk on the cards, and I think listening to it from a few people that are very close in there, it's scary to think that it's a possibility. Still to this day with what's happening with the coronavirus as well. So obviously with the bushfires, it nearly got cancelled, and then you obviously look 12 months ahead, and we're in a situation now where they're looking at do we play the Australian Open? Do we have it with no crowd? Do we have to quarantine every athlete that comes in? What's the sponsorship going to look like? Do we have crowds? I mean, it is just an amazing thought to think that in January we almost cancelled it from the smoke, and now we're looking at 12 months later. It's like a different thing altogether, but we may not have it. So you look at the US Open, French Open, still trying to run the slams at the end of the year, and players are like, well, I'm gonna bypass this one to play this one. It's such a different world we're living in compared to what we used to.
Almost definitely, because even with the US Open, I was reading the other day, the USTA put out a special notice to a lot of people, and they were talking about how it's possible to still do the US Open. And in my head, I can't wrap my head around the fact that, yes, there may be some players out there, but it's going to be limited to the amount of people that they're going to let into the venue. And, it's not going to have the same feel. And not from a player perspective, I could not imagine being on a court in Arthur Ashe Stadium and, having 4 people go, yay, go,
Yeah.
It's just the same. It's not the same energy. It's not, so for me personally, I would rather them just completely bypass it to make sure that everybody's healthy, to make sure everybody's, everything is clean. So that way, when you do get back, people are not afraid to sit, more than 3 seats away from you, or, the players are actually able to go out on the court and have a good time, because I think they feed off the energy of the crowd just as much as the crowd feeds off and gives them energy to be able to play.
It's a great point you make, because we have just restarted our Australian football season as of 2 nights ago, and there is no crowd allowed in the venue. So it's basically usually 40, 50,000 people, 60,000. We've got a stadium in Melbourne, it's 100,000 seating, and usually the crowds are obviously giving the energy. They basically have no one allowed in the venue. So and the players
are practice.
Practice, and it is a different feeling. And the telecast was they basically put crowd noises to everything. So they were pressing buttons, and it actually worked quite well from the viewer sitting at home.
Right.
I can't imagine what it was like being an athlete where you're in a stadium that seats
Empty
100,000
seats with noise.
Yeah.
I mean, that's like if we were to have the U.S. Open and we gave everyone the monitors and put them out to the soccer fields out back and named it Venus Hill. Like that's like the equivalent of like what I could see happening with the U.S. Open. Like that has to be awkward. Or there's not enough people here. Move on that side of the stadium to make it look like it's.
I mean, I don't understand it because I'm still freaked out about going to the grocery store. So there's no way that I'm getting ready to go inside of a tennis venue with people beside me and be like, okay, I need you at least 50 more feet that way.
Yeah. I guess, the hardest thing that I find now is that I look at this from two ways. You look at these athletes that are now not able to make an income. And I was talking to you guys before we came on, and we talked about, I've got a player who's a, pro, and, she ain't making a cent, at the moment. So, she's only forking out for training and there's nothing coming back. And this is the hard part that we're dealing with, people's income and livelihood, and, people are in different stages of their career, in different situations. And obviously they want the tour to go back regardless of how it looks. And, there's people that like us that probably don't want to watch it because it's going to be a totally different, feel for us at home. But I think there's so many different ways to look at it. Sponsors may drop off if there's no tour this year, and then next year it might affect the next 2 or 3 years ahead if nothing goes ahead. So there's so many, I guess, for the federation, so many things to play out to make sure that tennis doesn't in this pandemic.
Right, and I think when we had Noah Rubin on a while back, and we touched on this briefly with the payout and how much it costs just to play, and especially if you're not in that top, I'm even going to go the top 20. If you're not in the top 20 making some decent money, tennis is an expensive sport, hobby, whatever you want to call it. Because even from the club level players, we gripe about the $165 that we have to pay to go play a tournament. And Noah was like, well, yeah, now I need you to tack on hotel costs, flights, coaches. Yeah. I mean, and he was saying that just to go and play a qualifying match can cost you almost up to like 10 grand just to play qualifying. And you're not even guaranteed to get any money from that. So I'm like, you really have to love that sport.
Yeah, exactly. And, I think the biggest thing from a coaching perspective is I generally like to look at it as a journey in life. And it's a great life teacher is that, you're investing in yourself as a person. And that, to me, is the most important investment you're making. You're not investing in yourself to try and make, a hell of a lot of money back. That's not, if you're doing it for that reason, you're not doing it for the right reasons. You're investing in yourself to become the best person you can, to live a healthy life, to get a real journey in the pathway of life. And in tennis, you obviously have to do everything on your own. So you generally learn, a lot of your self-disciplines and great behaviors that can carry you forward to be a successful person in life, and to be able to, navigate your way through what is, I think a real challenge. Is life in general is a challenge. And, tennis teaches us so much about that self-discipline and reliance that, you're investing in yourself to become the best you can. So, and that's, tennis is a bloody expensive sport. It's crazy. Amazingly expensive sport, but you're investing in being the best person you can be.
Right.
I'm gonna check flights to Australia. So we have a question from one of our guests, Chip. What's the forecast for Australian tennis players? He's a Sam Groth fan.
Well, I don't know if Sam's going to come back, so I apologize if he is. But Sam was a fantastic Davis Cup player for us, and he was a great advocate for playing the sport because he loved it. He went away from the game for a year or two, and then came back and did an amazing job playing and doing our country proud in Davis Cup. But look, I think off air we discussed a little bit about Australia's journey, and I think if Ash Barty and Alex de Minaur and Nick Kyrgios don't last the next 8, 9, 10 years, I think we might be in a little bit of trouble because we've got a little gap between the top echelon of players and what's coming through, I guess, behind that. So, it's challenging. We've got some good players up there at the minute, and I think Australia's doing, not too bad. Not as good as America in terms of depth, I think, but we've got obviously Ash Barty, who's one of the world's best female players, and Alex de Minaur is an incredible young talent, and obviously shouldering Australia's men's side of the game with Nick Kyrgios at the moment. But look, there's probably very few and far between, unfortunately. But we're in the middle of a bit of a change with our federation. We're going through some big changes to our systems and our philosophies that the federation are going through. So, hopefully in the next 4, 5, 6 years, we can see the fruits of that starting to flourish and hopefully get back to being one of the top nations in the world.
Right. And before, I know Gary has another question for you, but real quick, because you mentioned her name, like Ash, I've started watching her as she started, rising and going through the rankings. This is anybody that has won a major like that, especially, coming in so young and just on fire. You have to wonder what's going through their heads. Like, I've won this major and now I have to sit out almost 2 years before I can actually go back and defend, or just go back and play. Not even defend, just go back and play. And am I still going to have that same fire and trajectory that I had, before? Because she was like coming through, and people were starting to use her name a lot more in the women's tennis circle.
Yeah, I think the greatest thing about Ash is that she's one of the most amazing people, and she's just so genuine, so respectful. She's not only a great tennis player and role model on the court, she's a great role model off the court for a lot of our players. And, it's a real shame because she really started to hit her straps, obviously, here and this year. And it's always a challenge to see who's going to come back in what shape because, there's a lot of players. I heard Rafael Nadal say he's had 2 months without hitting a ball. Not that it's going to make too much of a difference for someone like that, but, there's going to be a lot of players that, in situations where they can't play and have been restricted. But, Ash Barty's, a phenomenal athlete.
So we
can I please take that one? Because I was so going to put her on blast, but out of respect, I wasn't going to bring it up. So a good friend of mine, co-worker, she's an amazing tennis player, Anna Edelman. She's also worked with Sydney. She's also a decorated collegiate player. Wants to know, if you know Nick Kyrgios, can you please give her a good, put in a good word? So,
thank you, Anna. You can log off now.
Look, I know Nick to an extent, but not well enough to put in the word. But he's we actually discussed Nick Kyrgios off air, and I love Nick and what he brings to the game. He brings character. He brings this unique style of game. He brings this total uniqueness to what it is. And you never know what's going to happen when Nick Kyrgios takes that court. And that's what I love about him. He's so talented, amazing amount of talent. But he's definitely different. And he speaks his mind, and he's honest to God in the way he goes about his conferences. And I think that's what I love about him. I think that's what everybody loves about Nick Kyrgios, is that we just don't know what's going to happen, and I think he's amazing for the sport. I think we need a few more of those to spruce up what tennis is.
Yeah, and I think he's an amazing player, and I mean everybody that knows me knows that I try to shoot from the hip and just say it like it is or how I feel it is. And if he wants to come on here and defend it, I'm welcoming him to do that. But I mean, because you read a lot of things about him, and it's, you read the good and the bad. And unfortunately, there's a lot more bad than good that you read at times. And like just recently with the whole thing with Dominic Thiem talking about, the payments of players that are not, that are under a top 100 or 200 or whatever it is, and Nick coming back and defending that. And at first I was just like, okay, I'm not sure how to feel about this because it's coming from Nick. Because I'm just waiting for the other shoe to drop, because I know he's going to say something else. But then, but he kept it up, which I appreciated. And then, I read something else where John McEnroe was talking about, Nick needing a coach. And, then Nick saying, well, I'm not sure I even like the game enough to have a coach and want a coach because it's money I have to spend and I don't need to spend it. Which, again, I think he's a brilliant player. And when I see him, like you said, he's good for the sport. But like you just said, also, you never know exactly which Nick you're going to get. And, as a person that pays money to go and see a tennis match, I don't want, the the Nick that comes out there that day and says, you know what? It's Thursday and I need to go home and watch TV. I need to get out of here as quickly as possible. So I'm not going to play because I feel like now I've wasted my money and time, but then you get those flashes of brilliance that he does on the court that you don't see from anyone else. And you're like, I'm glad I paid my money to come and see this.
Yeah. I hear it's interesting. Hopefully I can change your mind a little bit on this. I don't know Nick as well as, a lot of people in this country, but one thing I hear a lot about Nick, and this probably doesn't get spread around because people, want to use him as a headline, is that Nick Kyrgios is the most amazing person charity-wise that you'll ever find in the tennis arena. He does that much charity work. He gives that much time to the young generation. He gives away so much money. He is the most kind-hearted person, and yet every headline about Nick is about what he does wrong. And I think, there's an amazing side to Nick Kyrgios that a lot of people don't want to acknowledge, and that's more the media than anybody else, because the media portray everything that they want to portray to sell papers or to sell headlines. And, and again, I'm not getting, I don't get paid from Nick, so trust me, this is not a...
I mean, it kind of sounds like fake news.
That's why we brought you on, because you can at least give us that side of the story, Mark, because we don't get to hear stuff like that. And I think if more people, heard that stuff, even if he wants to have the bad boy image, that's great. It worked for John McEnroe forever, and it's still working for him. And I think even when they throw dirt on John McEnroe, he will still have a fist raised. No, you didn't get it right. Do it again. So, But I think that's the thing with, people like Nick. I mean, and like Anna says, yes, I do love Nick's game. And I like to hear the positive stuff that comes out of those players from time to time, because when it's always the negative, I think you shut down and you don't really get to hear the good stuff that's peppered in there a little bit. So thank you for sharing that with us. I'm sure a lot of the people that watch this or, know about Nick will not, they would not have agreed with anything I said, because I know Anna is probably waiting to get in touch with me right now.
Yeah, because she's just in love with his game. But yeah, okay.
Like we hear about the bad things in what Nick does around his tennis, but we don't hear about him as the person. And this is where I think the identity factor comes in, because the media see the identity of these tennis players as being a tennis player, but they're actually very genuine people behind the scenes, and they do a lot of good things that don't get talked about a lot. And I think he's a great advocate for charity. He's a great advocate for kids in tennis, and he gives so much time. So I've only got good words to say about him.
Perfect. So I mean, like, one of the things that I've recognized also, with you saying that, like, for instance, we started doing the New York Open here in New York a while back. And one of the things that I loved about it, because I'm a photographer, so I get to go out and actually shoot a lot of the matches that are there. And that venue is literally set up to where you can go in and you can see the players and talk to them. There's not this gate fence thing that, you have everywhere else where they're so pushed apart. And a lot of the players I got to meet, like the Bryan brothers, I got to meet them and hit with them for a little bit. And it shocked me, and I didn't, I was just like, okay, thanks. Yes, I will do this. I don't care what you do. If you hit me, that's fine. But but it's the fact that you actually get a chance to meet a lot of those players and get to see that other side of them, like you said, which we don't get to see or hear from the media. So I think it's great.
Spot on. And talking about the Bryan brothers, they're, spending time with those guys. I've spent 6 Australian Opens with them, and they are the most genuine people on the planet. And you would have probably felt that, Sydney, when you were on the court with them. They are just down to earth guys. I was in awe when I walked on the court the first time with them, and they were just like your best mate that you've known for 20 years. And they treat you just so well, and they're just down to earth. They're just normal guys that do a really good job at playing tennis. So
and the other thing with that, I feel like they're very good ambassadors for the game, and the concept of they know what they're successful in, kind of like Bethany Maddox Sam. she's decent at singles, not to take away from her game in singles, but she's known for her doubles. So it's embracing that, just like the Jensen brothers that came along before Bryan brothers, but that was a whole nother mess that didn't last too long, unfortunately. That's the truth. But yeah, like I think we need more people like that, and that okay, even though I don't have the quote unquote, oh God, Anna, sorry, even though I they don't have quote unquote the perfect game, they're able to make it work as a team and a unit. I mean, they're going to go down in history as one of the greatest, if not the greatest, doubles team of all time.
Yeah, 100%. And that's they are just the most phenomenal people, role models, ambassadors for this game. I think they've won the fan favorite on the ATP fan zone like 10 years in a row or something crazy, and people just love them because they give you time. And a lot of superstars, and this is where in every sport or any actors or singers or dancers or whatever, the best people in every sport will not give you time. But these guys just give you incredible amounts of time. And, I'm forever grateful just to even talk to them for 1 second, let alone be on the court with them for, insane amount of time. And I spoke to Mike Bryan a few weeks ago, and I asked him if he could do a testimonial video for me. I've just released a new website, and he even questioning did this amazing testimonial, and he goes anything to help a brother out, and I'm like, just a great person, and you can just I never ask for favors, but when you speak to them, it's almost like they don't even think it's a favor. It's like they just do it because they do it. It's what they do, and just genuine people.
Yeah, and it's funny you say that because. When we were doing the New York Open, the first year that I saw them come in to play, they were on the court practicing, and Leander Pass was on the court with them, and they were talking. And I had my camera out, and I'm just going around shooting and doing my thing. And Mike was swinging one of his rackets while he was talking to Leander, and it slipped out of his hand and caught me in my shin. Broke skin, had a little blood, but I'm sitting here thinking, okay, my camera's fine. I'm good, and automatically it's like both of them came over and they were like, are you all right? Are you good? Are you good? Call the EMT. They got people over and got me all patched up. And then Mike was like, well, do you play tennis? Cause you're obviously shooting it. So you like it. Do you play? And I was like, yeah, I like to play doubles. Cause that's my thing. And they were like, well, no, that's our thing. I was like, what if I'm hurt and I can't think cause I lost blood. But they literally brought me on the court. They said, do you think you can, hit back and forth with this for a little bit? And like 20 minutes of just, volley drills in there because I love their volleys. And 20 minutes. And I was just like, you can cut me, do whatever you want to, but if this is my payoff, I'm good. So yeah, it's, I've been fortunate to meet a lot of different players, and unfortunately, it's happened because something either broke or I fell in front of somebody or somebody hit me with something. But I got to meet all these players because of it. But, and I realized that what I'm seeing in the media is not so much what this person actually portrays, in real life. So it's good when you can literally get it from another person's perspective that has either worked with them or just, met them at some different point, so that people know it's good that you can talk to them when you see them and say hi, but know when you need to back off, because if they're working, they need to focus and not take it as them being rude because they can't just stop what they're doing and talk to you.
Yeah, 100%. And yeah, absolutely, it's their job. They're out there to make a living and feed their families, no different to what every other person is. Every adult is doing out there with their families or people that are in their house or paying bills or whatever it might be. That's their job. So, they have to go out there and do that. And, there's a time and place, but, they will always give you their time. And that's the one amazing thing about those guys is, I'm forever grateful just to as I said before, to be able to spend even 1 minute with them, let alone, every year they've come to Australia in the last 6-7 years. So that's been pretty incredible.
Awesome.
So I'm going to switch gears for a little bit, and this is a sensitive subject to a lot of people, especially within the LGBTQ community, but being that I'm from the LGBTQ community from the States, obviously you've heard a lot of talk within the tennis community in regards to the 24-time Grand Slam champion Margaret Court. So I wanted to get your thoughts and your take, because a lot of people have had opinions on her place in history and where she resonates. And you've also seen players like John McEnroe and, Ivan Lendl. Not, excuse me, why did I say Ivan Lendl? I have no clue. Oh, well, it's McEnroe. He lost. I was watching that match earlier today. So McEnroe and Navratilova going on court and protesting a little bit as far as changing the name. What are your thoughts on it?
Yeah, it's a good question. It's obviously a really challenging subject with Margaret Court in Australia. And look, no one can ever take away what she's done in sport. I think, when that's what she did. She was a tennis player. And I think, we can't take away her amazing tennis skills, the way she went about things as an athlete. Obviously the record she has in place is phenomenal. Obviously she said some things that, is an opinion from her. Would I have said anything? No, because, you keep your opinions to yourself. I mean, she's going to be listened to because she's so high profile. But do you take away her court for that? I don't know. I'm not going to say yes or no. It's not. This is not a. I'm not anybody in the world, but I'm just a normal human being that I don't know what should happen from this. But look, there's obviously her as the person is being. Doing probably, and the worst thing about what she's doing is she's continuing on with her conversation. Drop it. People don't need to hear anymore. You've said what you needed to say. But yeah, I don't really have an opinion on anything, and I don't want to, obviously anger anyone if I said anything or disappoint anyone. I think everybody's got an opinion, and it's going to be split. So, I just don't think she needs to carry on with what she's already said, in public.
I think that's a good point that you make as far as, being able to, you said what you wanted to say and you've got it out and it's in the open and you can't deny that you've ever said it and it's out there. So instead of continually beating people over the head with it, let it go. And I think that's part of the issue is that people, once they hear something, even if they're ready to let it go, you still have the media, you still have everybody else that's still bringing it up. And so I think you feel like you have to defend what you said. And I think that's on either side of it, just playing devil's advocate. I think that's on either side of it. You still feel like you have to be able to defend what you said. And now that you're defending it, it can make it worse because now you're getting frustrated and you're getting angry and you feel like nobody's really listening to what you said. So if you took the court away, is it still going to make it any different for anybody that's going to play on it, whether her name is on there or not? Nobody's going to not go and play the Australian Open just because they didn't remove her name from the court. But at the same time, you can still have your feelings. And like you said, I get what John McEnroe and Martina are saying because, specifically Martina, because she's coming from a different side of it, because she's not only coming from it from a female perspective, but also from the LGBTQ community. And so she's voicing outrage on both of those things because this is a woman that she probably looked up to, as most girls did coming up. And now she doesn't know how to deal with that new person that has emerged that she never got to see.
Well, and from the standpoint of, and Sydney, I'm a Christian, so is Sydney. Margaret Court, she is of faith. And I think from her standpoint, I'm again trying to give her the benefit of the doubt, but it's, I'm sure there is trying to some form of love or what she sees as a form of love. Now, from a tennis standpoint, the one thing I struggle with, she has 24, rightfully so. We'll never take that away. 11 of them being Australian. We'll never take that away. I think the disconnect, started even before that when she played Bobby Riggs and going against like what Billie Jean King did. And that's a whole nother mess within itself where it was very off guard and very protected. And I think if she had beaten Bobby, it would have been a different scenario than Billie Jean coming up and okay, well, I'm just going to use, finesse and just move this old man around on court. I think her place in history is still of importance. I think what I would like to hear, kind of like what we talked about with Nick Kyrgios, I want to hear something that Margaret Court's done good. Like what did she do? You know what I mean? Like to maybe cushion or give me a different angle than just me delivering anger right back at her. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think when Sydney spoke about, before, I think she keeps digging the hole deeper the more she speaks, and I think, like I was saying before, I think once you've said what you've said, again, you can't take it back. Once you've done what you've done in tennis, you've already done it. So the past is the past. Let it go. Move forward. If someone questions you on it, don't comment on it because you're just digging the hole deeper and deeper and angering a lot of people. And there's just I think we spoke at the start. It's all about a community and coming together. It's not about trying to distance people. And the more she speaks, the more she distances herself from the sport, the more she distances herself from people that she's played against. And I think, at the end of the day, look, if you've said something once, you can maybe go and apologize to the people that you've hurt and take it back. But if you continue on down the path, that gap becomes wider. And
exactly.
A lot of people that she's played with, it's become wider. I don't know her personally, but she's an amazing tennis player, and I can't take that away from her. So her record is phenomenal. But I think if we can leave the comments from where they were, then obviously the gap won't widen, and obviously you can't take them back. So
exactly, and I don't think that it's that. For me personally, I would never want to diminish what that person accomplished as a player or whatever they did, because that's, they did that. Nobody gave it to them. Nobody, fixed it for them so that they can get it. They did that on their own. But, from something that Gary said earlier, about her being a Christian and all of this, I think that it becomes more difficult when people start throwing, she's a Christian and she did this and she did that, because like you said, she said it once, that was enough. She should have left it alone. But when she continued to do it, it made it difficult for people to still look at her and say, oh, she's a Christian. Oh, she's apologized. But she keeps going on and on and on. And it makes it more difficult for people to say, you know what? I'm just going to forget about her and leave it alone, because she continually puts herself in that position for people not to want to do that. Because I'm quick to tell people, you know what? Don't care what that person said unless they keep pushing it at me. And then I have to say what I have to say and start, striving to make it better for other people around me. So I feel like with Margaret Court, if, like you said, if she would just be quiet and live out those years in that chair that she sits in every Australian Open and just wave to the crowd, people will just be like, okay, go with God, do you, and everything will be all right. But I think the more she continues to push it is the more that people are going to insist that they change the name to the court, or they do this or do that. Quite frankly, if they didn't change the name, nobody's not going to go there. Nobody's not going to go play tennis there. They're still going to do it. But, they'll still always bring it, and that will always be the black mark on the Australian Open because of something that she said and continued to say.
Yeah. Well, and personally, I think Yvonne Goolagong sounds way better than Margaret Court, but that's a personal preference. But actually, I have a question for both of you. And this is just me thinking outside the box, because I tend to do that quite a bit. Sydney can tell you.
Oh, no, it doesn't.
Do you think from her standpoint, it turned out that she's trying to drive it home to everyone? It's almost as she's trying to explain herself without even realizing, how aggressive or the fact or the manner of you're bringing it up. Do you get what I mean? Is it the thought? It's again, I want to give her the benefit of the doubt.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think if you take away the topic itself, I think everybody in life has said something they probably would like to take back. And the more that somebody questions you on it, you find yourself putting your wall up and trying to defend, and then you almost end up making it worse, like obviously has happened. And it doesn't matter what situation or what topic in life. and you almost keep digging. And I think sometimes when you say nothing at all, it's almost better, because the person who has received the information might not have interpreted it the way that you've said it, and may have interpreted it another way. So, but the more you go around and you continually try and defend with that wall up, you never know what's coming out of your mouth. And, the tone that comes out and the aggression and the body language can generally suggest that, I'm backtracking, and you hear the beep, 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 beep,
Right.
beep. And it's like, there's a person behind you, you've reversed over them too at the same time.
Well,
So,
I mean, her profession doesn't really help on that subject. It doesn't. If we really want to get down to it, that choice, and which that is a choice.
Yeah.
So it is what it is. So.
But I think, and to answer that question also, I think it's part of the thing where, like Mark said, if she would have stopped when she first said it, people would more than likely, because there's so many other things going on in the world at that time and now, that people would have literally glossed over it and been like, I heard what she said, I didn't like what she said, but now there's this shiny thing over here, so let's go over here. And it wouldn't have been such a big deal. But I think because of the fact that, she kept bringing it up, and like Mark just said, when you start backtracking and you feel cornered, you feel like you need to come out and defend yourself, and it just makes it worse. So for me, like I said earlier, I would more prefer that you not say anything else about it, because it's only going to, fan those flames even hotter for people. And especially nowadays with everything that's going on, especially here in the States, race and, racial discrimination and sexual discrimination, gender discrimination, it's just too much for people. And so now every little thing that happens, and I had this conversation with a friend of mine today, that every little thing that happens, people are very touch sensitive about it. So it doesn't matter, if you could just say, I don't like the fact that you're wearing a black hat. And it's like, what, you don't like black hats now? So it's, everybody's becoming so sensitive with so many small things that they forget the bigger picture of it all. Now, if she did something and she hurt someone, which, she did in a sense, she needs to take accountability for it. But on the other hand, if you keep beating this dead horse, it is not going to get up. Let it die.
And it's also, I mean, let's be frank, it's not really good with the reflection of what tennis has within the LGBTQ community. The likes of, and this is no disrespect with what's transpired through history, Bill Tilden, Renee Richards, Navratilova. I mean, that Billie Jean, So even with those subjects, the fact that you're countering that when we're trying to be progressive and move forward doesn't really help the situation.
And it doesn't. But I think it's also the fact that you have to look at that when people make comments like that, or when they do things like that, it makes it harder for players, whether they be tennis, football, basketball, whatever. It makes it harder for them to feel comfortable coming out and still be able to play their sport without anybody looking at them in a different light. Because now you're no longer just a great tennis player. Now you're like, oh, he's the gay tennis player, or he's the gay basketball player. And I don't think that's a moniker anyone wants to take on. I just want to be a tennis player, or I just want to be an athlete. I don't need to have any other moniker attached onto me to say that this is who I am because of who I, choose to be with in my life.
And again, that's coming back to identity. We're people much more than we are athletes, and we can choose to be who we want. We can be how we want. And that's what life is, right? It's about having the ability to be who we are. And that's, again, we can't take away the fact that we are people much longer than we are athletes. So
Exactly.
So, switching some gears here. You attempted playing on futures and satellite events, and you switched to being a full-time coach. Can you tell us a little bit about that experience? Because obviously you've been teaching for a long period of time. You have an impressive resume embellished on that.
Yeah, I think the word attempt is a good word for it because it was. Yeah, so I played. I finished my schooling, my BCE, which is my Year 12 studies, high school, I guess for American terminology, and I felt like I wanted to play pro instead of maybe going to college, which is probably a better option for me to try and hone my craft a little bit. My family, I didn't come from a family that was overly rich at all. My dad worked extremely hard. He worked several jobs to keep us afloat. So I basically, from the age of 12, funded my own tennis, obviously from pro. My dad paid for my tennis lessons once a week for 30 minutes until I was 18. And then I'd saved up all my birthday money and Christmas money and anything I'd ever made up until 18 to go and play pro. And it lasted maybe about 18 months. And I was then, sitting at home with an injury, and I, couldn't afford, to do what I wanted to do, to play. So I was still coaching to make money to play the game anyway. And I thought, you know what, I love teaching others more than putting time into myself. And I felt like, I'd be a much better coach than I am player. And I enjoyed making money from doing the thing that I loved, which was tennis. I enjoyed the financial side of it. Whereas when I was playing, I was always losing money. So I thought, what, this is a no-brainer. I'm not making a cent as a player. So what the hell am I doing? So I basically turned my hat to coaching full time from the age of sort of 19 and a half, 20 years of age. But I was coaching from the age of 14. So, I've just turned 38. I'm 24 years into a coaching career, a coaching journey that, I continue to evolve every single day. I continue to learn. I continue to grow and develop myself. It's obviously a passion of mine is the growth in myself. So it's something that I do 8, 10, 12 hours a day. I'm on the court with, some quite good junior players that I love working with, that you see them grow and develop. And that's the real reward for you as a coach is seeing people evolve underneath your tutorage. And I've loved every minute of it. It's a challenging job because I do sort of like before school hours generally. I do after school hours. And that's obviously now my kids are now growing up and going to school. So you miss out on that family time, which is something that I've got to find my balance with. But, tennis is, or coaching is, people ask me all the time, what do you do for a living? And when I say I'm a tennis coach, they actually say, no, what do you actually do to make money? And I'm a tennis coach. They look at me like I've got, alien horns or whatever coming out of my head. I'm a coach. I coach Australian football. I coach tennis. I coach, multiple sports and multiple people. And they say, well, how do you do that? You don't know anything about these other sports, or you haven't been involved as an athlete. And I say, look, at the end of the day, I'm coaching the person. I'm trying to get the best out of the person themselves. I'm trying to motivate them to drive to achieve success. I'm trying to find their inner drive. I'm trying to get them to understand what drives them in life. Right. And for me, that's what a coach is. A coach doesn't need to know every single bit of the sport, because the athlete will find ways to teach the coach as well as the coach teaching the athlete. So coaching has been a big part of my life. And, sometimes I have to take my coaching hat off when I walk in the door, because I generally try and coach at home as well. And you sort of you have to find the split, because at the end of the day, I want to be dad when I'm at home, not coach. And that's, or husband. And that's kind of where I think I need to learn a bit better as to how to separate myself and take my identity of coach off when I come back in the home door. And it's a challenge, but it's a passion. And if everyone that speaks to me says that when you talk coaching, you talk passionately, and I'm like, yeah, because what more drive do you need than getting the best out of someone? And when they achieve, you achieve. And
exactly. I think that's the thing everybody looks for, is the passion in what they want to do with life. That's the one thing. One of my best friends is always telling me, he's like, find your passion, see what you want to do. You love this, you love that. But when you talk about this, I can hear it in your voice. So yeah. I think it's a great thing that, that you're able to, that you found your passion and you're able to, go out and achieve that, because I think even your little ones will be able to see that and know that, okay, now I can go out and find what I like to do and what I love to do, and now what I'm passionate about, and hopefully be able to do that, until I just can't do anything else. So,
and isn't it amazing? Like in life, we think that the stereotypical life is you go through high school, you go to college, you get your degree, you go and study whatever, you go and do this. This is my pathway in life. I need to do this. But I think these days life is so different. And, I'll encourage my kids, whatever they want to do. Don't think to be somebody else, be yourself. And if you enjoy doing something, then I'll give you 110% of my support. Because that's, life is no longer what it used to be. There's so many options, and, explore what motivates you in life and what drives you. And, if you have to force yourself to get up in the morning, it's not your passion. You need to find what it is that gets you out of bed in the morning, 5 a.m. every morning. And if I'm not passionate about it, I wouldn't get up.
Exactly. Well, you tell those two little girls of yours that whatever sport they decide to play, if they decide to play it, that we will be watching.
That's good. At least two people will. That's good. I've got that.
And we will throw every one of your quotes back at them. Just in case you forget, it's recorded, so now we have it. So.
I know. Did it, and I can't take it back. Okay.
Can't take it back now. Sorry. So we are about to wrap up because we've had you on for about an hour. And it has been wonderful. Absolutely wonderful. So cool. we want to get our audience back involved right now and go back into talking about your 2 truths and a lie to see if anybody came up with what they think was the lie in all of this. So again, just to remind everybody, he has coached 2 sports, professional athletes at the highest level at the same time. Number 2, he took a set off the great Roger Federer in practice during his playing heydays. And number 3, coach of a singer and world champion dancer in the field, not on the tennis court. Right?
Yep.
All right. So everybody kind of lock in your answers and see what we get. Gary, do you think
I'm actually writing a note right now. Australians are terrible liars.
It's funny because I rang maybe 2 or 3 friends of mine and said, I can't lie. Can you help me with a lie? Oh, man, so challenging. It's the hardest thing I've had to do all week.
And that's the funniest thing. When we first started doing this, Gary and I did do a segment that we called mini chat, where we interview one another because we want people to get to know us as well. And when it came time for me to do my 2 truths and a lie, I was just like, I don't know. Because everything, no matter what you say, even if it's the truth, is going to sound like a big lie. And then people are going to still question you on that. Like, really, is that what you really did? So Gary,
challenging, let me tell you.
It is. So Gary, what's your answer?
Dose.
Number 2. Okay.
Of course.
So I'm gonna.
No offense, I love you, Mark.
He doesn't love you like I love you, okay? Because I was gonna say number 3.
It's the accent. Don't let it fool you.
Chip Hines said that he thinks it's number 3, and Anna. Why can't I say Anna's last name right now? Edelman. Love you, Anna. She said that she thinks it's number 2. So, if you will, Gary, give us a little drum roll here, and we will see what Mark is talking about.
There. How's that? We can talk about something before. I can't keep going. It's like I need a bongo or something.
Number 2. But now, have you got to practice with Roger Federer, or have you ever played with him?
The closest I got to playing Roger, I think I played virtual tennis 2 on one of those. And I think, he snipped me in that too. So I don't think I would have gone close in anything. But it was a hard one because I'm generally quite an honest sort of person. I'll tell you as I see it. And with doing that, it was challenging because I've coached two sports at the highest level. I still currently coach a Australian singer who's about to release her first album, which is quite awesome. I coach a world champion Latin dancer who was number one in the world. And, it's, as I said before, I coach the people. I never coach the sport specific, and that comes second to me all the time. It's understanding the person behind the athlete, understanding what makes them tick and what motivates them and what gets them up in the morning, trying to find that little carrot to get them to dangle up in front of them every single day to say, you know what, keep striving for your ultimate best every single day. And it doesn't matter coach in life or who you mentor or who you lead. If you're a leader in anything, it's about the person before it's the person, the athlete or the person doing their job. So
well, it's sad to say that carrot that you would be dangling over everybody else would more than likely be a Twinkie for me, because I don't do 5 o'clock in the mornings. But I do want to find out who the singer and the dancer were, because I love music and Latin dance. I actually got into Latin dance many, many years ago and absolutely loved all of it. So,
so the singer's name is Nasia Dallas, and she'll be, she's on all over social media. She's an incredible singer. Nasia, she's a superstar. So we do a lot of mindset and preparation and performance thought processes. And basically, when you go into a tennis court, you're a performer too. You have to perform best. It doesn't matter, where you're playing. And so she's an amazing person to work with. She's only 21 years of age. So, fantastic to work with her. And I worked with a lady by the name of Alana Donovan, and we talked a lot about mindset stuff and same sort of thing, performing. And she's a phenomenal athlete and now coach of Latin dancing here in Australia. And she was great to work with, and we talked a lot about people and how we act and respond in different situations. And it's just amazing to be able to, I call myself a coach no matter who I talk to, because I always want to ensure that I leave people better than I find them. And that's one of my sayings in life. And I want to leave everybody that I speak to better than I find them. And, no matter who I work with, whether it's in football, whether it's in tennis, life, it's one of my mottos that I go by.
That is absolutely amazing. And I think that's something that we all look forward to. If we have coaches in our lives that, that they are there for us as people, more so than just being an athlete, but as people, because at the end of the day, you're a person 24 hours of that day. You're only an athlete during those parts that you're having to play and that you're practicing. So it's greatly appreciated. So everyone, we definitely want you to be able to follow Marc on every 900 of his Instagram handles.
Wait. Anna has one question for Marc, and it's not about Nick Kyrgios. So just, she says, last question, curious, what racket do you use to play with?
Well, I'm glad you asked that. It actually gets one of the sponsors in. So I've used I've used tennis rackets since I was age of 18 or 19, and so they've looked after us as an academy at the Melbourne International Tennis School for 20 odd years, and I'm currently using the newest Radical. It's an incredible racket. So Danny Cherry from Head, if you're listening, I love the racket, and the Gravity is a beautiful racket too. So I never used anything apart from Head rackets since I've been coaching, really. So it's
Actually, I think Gary was trying to get me to switch over to.
That's the thing. Anna and I have this ongoing battle because I love the Head Extreme. She loves Yonex, but I can't. You know what? I can't comment because I demoed. We actually are training again to try to look somewhat decent to be back on court. I hit with the Yonex this weekend, and it's okay. I'll say that. Actually, it was a very good racket, but I have used Head for a long time. Before that, it was the Dunlop, the 200G, like that whole brand before they changed their style. So.
Yeah,
well, I'm looking forward to trying them out. So
when it was a club, when it was a club,
the 200G racket of choice. That was my weapon of choice as a player, and I used it all the way through from probably about 16 through to 19. And it was my favorite player of all time, who was an Australian player. Marc Sophoulis was my idol growing up, and he used the Dunlop 200G, and I thought that I could serve 230 Ks with that, and it just probably 30 Ks was probably the hardest I served. So. I
never would have guessed Marc Sophoulis.
Yeah, well, we have almost identical backgrounds. You know, he's Greek Italian, lives in Australia, similar surname, same first name, and it was incredible the similarities. Except I had no money, and that I couldn't serve at the same speed. So yeah, probably I could have his level. Yeah, we're close.
The little things.
The minor details.
All right, everyone. Thank you so much again, Marc, for coming on. Make sure that you go to his website. He has a lot of good information on there. So, you know, whether you're here in the States or in Australia, you'll be able to find something on there that you can literally glean from and take away with. If you have any questions of him, please feel free to reach out to him. When I do come to Australia, I will look you up because I need a couple of lessons. No offense to Anna or to Gary, because they are amazing.
That's fine.
But you're the coach's coach, so I need you.
Anytime you guys please look me up, and yeah, would love to meet everybody, because it's obviously, like I said, you know, the way that the world is right now, we all got to come together, and we got to unite, and we show a united front, share and look after one another.
Most definitely. So again, thank you so much, Marc, for being on the show. Next week, we will have Sean Stingle from our DC club, from the Capital Tennis Association. He will be our special guest on Wednesday, I think it's June 17th. And we are looking forward to having him on. And I think everyone else is, let's see, Chip Hines said, are you a grass court specialist, Marc?
Yeah, because I couldn't rally to save my life. So any short points were good for me.
Oh, just like Marc Philippoussis. Okay. Yeah, okay. And Anna said you got to help your girl out.
So basically, you don't forget about her and Nick. Thanks again, everybody, for joining us here on Mini Break. Gary and I thank you so much, and very appreciative of everybody coming on. And we will talk to you all soon. Have a great night, everyone.
Bye.
Thanks.